Additional Secretary of Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Manoj Pandey sir, our distinguished guest speakers, Gopal Krishna Agrawal sir, Madam Veni Thapar, Madam Karuna Gopal. We are live now with this webinar on Viksit Bharat, Corporate Governance at 2047. We are here, the current tally is 237. I'm sure many more will join. The program is also being live streamed at YouTube. Dear friends, we are at a juncture where we are in the process of envisioning the state of affairs and the shape of our country as a developed nation in 2047. Viksit Bharat and Shashakt Bharat is the overarching long-term dream, dream with prosperities on multiple fronts, the economic aspects, the social aspects, and of course, the focus on ecology and sustainable business practices. There is a lot which has been envisioned in the concept of Viksit Bharat as per the vision of the top leadership of the country, and a lot which is being discussed, articulated, so that collectively we all could contribute towards the co-creation of this vision, co-creation of this idea, so that when we complete 100 years of our independence, we reach to a stage where we can say that we have the best possible standards on multiple fronts. Of course, today's conference focuses on corporate governance and corporate affairs, so that's one of the spotlight area. Now, without speaking much, I would like to invite our DG Praveen Kumar sir for the welcome address and to formally begin with this webinar. Praveen Kumar sir.
Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you. I hope you are able to hear me.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Respected Shri Manoj Pandey, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Ms. Veni Thapar, who had till recently for a long time been a board member of IICA and so closely involved in the progress of IICA, which it has seen so far. Shri Gopal Krishna Agrawal ji, Ma'am Karuna Gopal ji, and all the participants, a very warm good afternoon to all of you. I think this webinar on corporate governance was felt as a very important need which we need to kick off now itself. Because Honorable PM has put us on a trajectory of a developed India by 2047, Viksit Bharat. And for that, each sector and each community will have to contribute for achieving that. Honorable Finance Minister has stated that even by conservative estimates, India's GDP will be around $30 trillion by 2047. While all sectors will be contributing to this, there will be a special responsibility in the corporates for achieving it, because without them, we may not be able to achieve the $30 trillion estimate which we are planning to get there to. Well, I'm confident the corporates will rise to the challenge as they have been rising to the challenge right from 1991. But I would like to re-emphasize the importance of having good corporate governance practices in achieving this. The challenge of corporate governance will change in the next 25 years. What we see today will be totally different from what will be there 25 years from now. New issues will rise up with new changes occurring every year, not even every month, new changes are coming in the ecosystem. Rather, if you see the history of corporate governance, we see that the scope has changed over time. Traditionally, we only talked of his reference to relationship between the management and the stakeholders, the investors, the shareholders. Over time, more and more stakeholders were added, from creditors to labor, employees, customers, society. For example, a few years back, the concept of ESG as an essential component of corporate governance was not there at all. I mean, no one talked of ESG, why the board should be looking at ESG as a part of corporate governance, good practice. But now it is slowly creeping in, especially in the top companies with the SEBI directed mandate for reporting BRSR reporting of 1,000 companies and all that. Slowly it's seeping everywhere. So we have started looking at business as an integral member of the society, as functioning as a responsible society, responsible member of the nation, and responsible member of the world. And corporate governance it's true that it has gained significance in the last 3 decades due to various corporate scandals which occurred in economies across the world. Enron, WorldCom of the US, Xerox of Japan, even Satyam in India. So each scam leads to some new innovations in corporate governance. But should we wait for another scandal to further improve it? I don't think we should be waiting for that. We need to be proactive and try to bring changes thinking about the future. Challenges are many. I mean, next 25 years, including technical challenges. I expect all family-led businesses will evolve into professionally run businesses. How this transition, because the corporate governance issues are totally different between the two. How this transition will be handled, that will be very important. The startup ecosystem will again continue to prosper and flower like anything. While they are very innovative, bringing a lot of changes, but there are challenges in the corporate governance and the ecosystem of the startups. As we have seen, so many failures have taken place due to corporate governance, be it, I don't want to name them, be it education, edtech company, be it finance, fintech company, everywhere, housing company. This basic failures have occurred because of false corporate governance practices. Another challenge will be rapid technology development. It will both be an opportunity and risk. Because technological ignorance by many or most boards will create an inability to direct and oversee management. And various IT risks with deficient internal controls may cause various kind of breaches, privacy breaches, reputational damage. You heard of so much data being leaked, affecting the reputation of the company itself. And at the end, bottom line, lead to significant investor loss. And with now AI, artificial intelligence playing such a major role, what kind of demands on corporate governance will be made, I am not able to fathom. Because 30 years back, not 30 years back, 15 years back, Satyam, with his parallel fake accounts, was a surprise to us. Imagine what kind of false narratives can be generated with deep fakes generated by AI. I mean, to meet such challenges, we'll need to use much greater technology. AI and blockchain tools and what new things may come may be used for better data analytics, forecasting, transparency. Again, for the corporates to function well, we don't need a very tight control. It should be more of a light touch but firm. Enforcement needs to be much more stronger, but there should be a regulation by self. That should be the priority in future. Again, as I said, ESG will become much more important. Business and human rights, which are novel in the Indian context today, will become very important. So, basic thing is that any rule-based approach on corporate governance may not work. It has to be based on a principles-based approach. What do you want to achieve? So, each company will need to internalize the principles of corporate governance. And instead of asking, is it legal to do this? We should ask the question, is this the right thing to do? I mean, that if that becomes the basic question, then a lot of issues in corporate governance would not arise. And all these issues will require deep deliberations. We thought that we need to kick off a discussion on this, and this webinar with eminent panelists from all sectors, we thought it will be a starting point for such discussions. And I hope, based on parameters being set today by the eminent panelists, we'll be able to create a proper structure on both the where corporate governance should be in 2047 and what should be the path to lead to it. With that, I hope we will have, all of you will have a very fruitful discussions and insights on this corporate governance 2047. Thank you very much, and thanks again to the panelists for sparing time and for this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your welcome address and setting the tone of this discussion. I'm sure the learnings of this discussion in terms of a paper to the government would definitely contribute towards the overarching vision document towards Viksit Bharat at 2047. Now, I would like to welcome and invite Shri Manoj Pandey sir, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, for his keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Neeraj Gupta. Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes, very much, sir.
Respected Shri Praveen Kumar, Sir DG and CEO, IICA, Shri Gopal Krishna Agarwal, Board Member, Bharat Petroleum, Ms. Karuna Gopal, Board Member, EIL, Ms. Penny Thapar, Board Member, Bank of India, Dr. Neeraj Gupta, Professor IICA, and participants of the webinar. DG and CEO IICA has basically summed up the entire context. He has set up the tone for the discussion and has also given a context that what should be the way forward to make India a Viksit Bharat, and also what should be the corporate governance structure going forward. Talking about the previous scams and how the regulations over the years have evolved, the guiding principle which he has talked about is that we have to be also aligned with the emerging technological advancements and the trends. Friends, the topic of the webinar today is Viksit Bharat Corporate Governance at 2047. Now, it is not only relevant, but also quite important from the point of view of Viksit Bharat 2047 vision of the government, aiming to transform India into a developed nation by the year 2047, marking the 100th year anniversary of independence. Today, India is the fifth largest economy in the world and will soon going to be the world's third largest economy. By 2047, it is aimed that India will have all the attributes of a developed nation. Now, for this to happen, as DG and CEO IICA also said, we all have to contribute. All parts of the society and all participants have to contribute in a manner that their practices, their vision, their mission, their ideas all are aligned. There has to have an ambitious and transformative agenda. Advancements in AI, quantum computing, and other technologies, which we have seen in last 2-3 years, are developments which are of immense importance from the not only from the perspective of the society on the whole, but also from the point of view of corporate governance. These developments assume importance from the point of view of having a structure and regulation in place to ensure that the bodies which we are creating or which are getting established through law do not fail but grow. A sound corporate governance structure is essential for a company from the perspective of promoting transparency, accountability, fairness, and also a fair degree of independence. I want to highlight one significant point that for any developed nation, if we see, there are more corporate bodies in place as compared to developing countries. During current year, the incorporation of companies and LLPs in India have been more than the incorporations that have happened in any of the previous financial years. Is still 1 month to go. That shows that more and more corporate structures are in place and there is a formalization of the informal structures which were in the economy. That's a welcome step. This has to now grow further. There should be more corporate structures. And by 2047, we should have the number of the corporate bodies which are also comparable to the developed nations. Now, for this, we require from the company and the other corporate bodies a set of policies and procedures which will control and which will give directions to it, and the rights and responsibilities among different levels in the corporate governance structure. Now, what would be typically the structure? As we know, there are investors and shareholders. As DG and COIC said, their interests are paramount. Then board of directors acting on behalf of these shareholders, the committees of the board, the management, auditors, and other stakeholders like certifiers who are certifying the regulatory filings. While advancement in technology is important, then the focus on diversity in the board for having more participation from different stakeholders, more initiatives on ease of doing business, a professional and focused culture, a sustainable business strategy and practices, ESG, corporate social responsibility, a culture of compliance, promoting transparency, accountability, and effective participation from all, especially from community and society, would definitely play a very important role. The principles, as DG and COIC also said, would assume importance here. So it should be a principle-based approach where further regulations and rules would govern those principles. Now, shareholders have their interest, be it institutional investors or retail investors or the promoters, to ensure that their investment is properly utilized and it's in safe hands. It should grow. And here, the board roles becomes important along with the committees, particularly the audit committee, nomination remuneration committee, stakeholders relationship committee, risk management committee, corporate social responsibility committee. Now, they have to play an effective role. Effective means they have to participate more, contribute more towards uh, having a robust corporate governance in place and creating structures for the future to ensure that the structures which are in place are also aligned with the emerging practices and emerging trends, be it technology, be it regulations, be it law. Similarly, the management will have to be focused and also ensure that they are aligned with the newer practices, the newer rules, newer regulations, and advancements in the particularly in the field of technology. The role of auditors and certifiers, we all know that how important it is, and at many places we have found that the role of auditors and certifiers have been found lacking, or there was some gap in their reporting. So they have to play a crucial role so that the businesses are do not fall, the value of investors do not fall, and the investors and other stakeholders have faith in the corporate structures. As far as government and regulatory bodies are concerned, while providing an enabling platform for the businesses to grow, for the corporates and limited liability partnership structures to grow, also ensure that there is effective regulation. And effective regulation would mean that businesses are promoted in a rightful manner and there is no failure in marketplace impacting the social economic structures and other economic players in the country. In past, several committees were constituted like Kumar Mangalam Birla Committee, Narayan Murthy Committee, Irani Committee, Naresh Chandra Committee, even Kotak Committee recently, apart from listing agreements of SEBI, to provide guidance towards principles of corporate governance. Ministry of Corporate Affairs giving through rules and also through the acts of Parliament has put in place certain rules of the game which need to be followed, and wherever it is required that rules have to be uh, aligned with the new practices, uh, that has to be that will be taken care of. I'm of the view that next 20 years, what is required is to ensure that the proper structures are in place. The traditional, in addition to traditional structures, the newer structures, which are like startups, or also in the era of technology, where we found that newer and newer see the innovations are coming into place. They have to be, in fact, seen from a perspective that there is some structural framework in place to also ensure that there is a regulatory framework which is robust with these structures, and actors in the corporate governance, which I just mentioned, the committees of the board, the management, the board of directors, the auditors, the certifiers, and the regulators, play effective and participatory role. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs has taken various steps towards ease of doing business and strengthening corporate governance in last 10 years. The IBC has played a very important role in ensuring that the businesses, the resolution takes place and the non-performing assets in the overall financial sector get reduced. So, what is important from going forward, that we have to have basic twin objective in mind. One, ease of doing business, and second, robust corporate governance, keeping in view the global best practices. Now, if we see that recently ministry also has come out with a policy guidelines where suggestions have been invited from the stakeholders for review of the rules in the Companies Act and LLP Act with these twin objectives only. The policy guidelines also suggest that the regulators should also consult the stakeholders for reviewing the regulations, and it should be the new regulations or the rules should be placed in the public domain for getting views from cross sections of the society and from stakeholders. We also know that the developed nations will have certain different practices than ours. So we also have to see what is unique to us, where we have to ensure that we have regulations and the rules which are meeting the requirements of our country. On basically the call of the Honorable Prime Minister, which is Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Prayas, that sums up the role of all actors, all the players in the corporate governance structure. So everybody has to contribute. Every actor, every player in this corporate governance structure has to contribute effectively. Then only I think there will be an effective and robust corporate governance framework. Ministry and its regulatory bodies are in basically coming out with the new regulations, with the new rules, keeping in mind that what is the need of the time, and that is why the rules and regulations are getting revised, are getting the public consultations are now taking place, so that the future need of the corporates and future need of the businesses are taken care of. To also, I'll also request the corporates, the professionals, and other stakeholders who may be also part of this webinar and maybe contributing to the discussion later on, to have an idea which is thrown to the regulators, is thrown among the discussants to enable them to take the agenda of how to make India a developed nation by 2047 forward. I will end my remarks with one sentence saying that the guiding principles of any governance, and particularly if you see the corporate governance structure, would be the satisfaction of all the stakeholders, be it investors, be it that is shareholders, be it board of directors, management, auditors, certifiers, regulators, ministries, and departments, because everybody is playing a role in evolving and developing the new structures, the while sustaining the traditional structures. And the if we see even our text, and that is our uh, the last chapter of Ramcharitmanas, that is Uttarakhand, also talks about the principles of governance. If the corporate governance structure is also aligned with that, where it is written that everybody has to be taken along to ensure a development and to ensure that everybody in the society is satisfied. So, with these words, I will end my initial remarks, and I'll be happy to contribute later on uh, in panel discussion. So, thank you very much, Dr. Neeraj, and thank you very much, Praveen Kumar, Sir, DG and CEO IICA. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for an insightful address. And what I could learn from your remarks, it's the collective role of the institutions to make sincere efforts for attaining the highest possible standards of corporate governance towards the larger aim of Viksit Bharat at 2047, with a focus to have wider prosperities for all the stakeholders. Now, it's my pleasure welcoming and introducing the distinguished experts, and then we would love to hear from you. I would like to introduce briefly Shri Gopal Krishna Agrawal sir. Sir had been on the board of IICA for 2 terms. Presently, sir is serving at the board of Bharat Petroleum Limited, and also Institute of Chartered Accountants, Institute of Company Secretaries of India, the IIP institution. Has served Bank of Baroda, NIPCO, and many more boards as independent director. Sir had been a member of the task force on MSME instituted by Ministry of Finance, Government of India, a national spokesman at BJP on economic affairs. He is a chartered accountant and economist, and widely speaks on the aspects related to society, environment, and human rights. I welcome you, sir, and would like to invite you for your discourse for about 10 to 12 minutes. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Neeraj Gupta ji, my co-panelist, Shri Praveen Kumar ji. We had the privilege of listening your profound in opening remarks. Shri Manoj Pandey ji, our colleague Karuna Gopal ji and Vaini Thapur ji, and all the participants. It's a very important topic that we are discussing today at IICA, and panel discussion and questions will be very important for understanding the whole ecosystem that the Prime Minister Modi ji has been successful in creating for the good business environment in last 10 years. And we see a very positive sentiment for Indian economy, not only in India, but across the globe. Every institution, every country, every other platforms, multilateral or bilateral platforms, they see a great potential for India's economy in coming 25 years. And their interest in Indian economy stems from their willingness to participate in the growth. That's very important because the world at present is feeling that economic activity in couple of decades is going to shift towards India, and they want to participate in that. And that hope, perception, and the enthusiasm across the globe is very well seen. Prime Minister has been over the last 10 years has created good ecosystem, and corporate citizens is an important part of the economic activity. At time there was a period when we were focusing only on socialist form of governance. At that point of time also, the focus on the economic growth we lost somewhere. I think the major important achievement that the Prime Minister over the 10 years has done is considering that economic creation of wealth is very important. And as I look after the economic affairs in the party also, from the party's point of view, an ideological point of view, I categorically want to state that we consider industry, business community as part of nation building, and we are not shy of their getting associated with that. We are right to center ideology, and we know that creation of wealth is equally important to have a successful distributive model. Over the last 10 years, there has been a great achievement on the efficient distributive model also. Every sections of the society, geographically area or any segment of the society, of the participation in the economic activity and growth is important, and there lot of ecosystem has been created over that period. But at the same time, I would also like to mention here that when we came to power, our economy was on the fragile five, and the corporate sector was facing two problems, which was mentioned as twin balance sheet problem: over leveraged corporate sector and undercapitalized bank. If Mr. Manoj Pandey has clearly underlined those factors where by capitalizing of the bank or IBC and other measures, the NPA, solving the NPA problems and other legislative resolution, an ecosystem has been created where corporate sector is at present on a healthy ground to go for expansion in the private investment, grow for expansion in the industries, and banking sector is also with low NPA is in a healthy position to lend. So both twin balance sheet problems which were bogging down the corporate sector, the whole ecosystem, which was affecting the growth in the private sector of investment, have been to a large extent dealt in this 10 years. The second important point that I would like to underline is the way PSUs have performed in the last 10 years. That is remarkable. You look into any PSUs, their performance in last 10 years has been exemplary. And that is very clearly being seen in their acceptance in the capital market. The rates of the share prices of any of the PSUs across segment, steel, construction, banking, or even railways, space technology, defense, all these segments PSUs have performed very well in the last 10 years. That also shows the confidence and the revival mechanism that the PSU has been undertaking. Their profitability has grown multi-fold, and that is also creating good capacity for them to build capex investment. I'm on the oil sector. If you look into the oil companies, all the oil companies have huge plan for capital investment, capex. So that public sector undertakings are contributing a lot to the resource generation for the government through their dividend or income profitability, and at the same time they have become robust in capex investment. That is also helping the Indian economy. So this was the second point that I wanted to underline. Some important initiatives that have been taken in the last 10 years on the PSU side is the government had come out with one policy on PSU restructuring, where they said that the structured, the strategic the public sector enterprise policy for Atmanirbhar Bharat, that has made a big change in the how PSUs are working, how PSUs are revived, and the classification of PSUs under strategic and non-strategic. That focused approach is also an important part that the PSU has undertaken. Even another initiative was that the PSUs, public sector enterprises, were shifted from heavy industries to Ministry of Finance, so that their focus on profitability and better performance is there. The third important point initiative that has been taken about the bringing the corporate governance means bringing transparency in the corporate structure. Almost 41 production units on the ordnance factories have also been corporatized into 7 corporations. That's also very important. The way defense sector has undergone a big change in the last 10 years is a success story, and that transparency has been brought with corporate structure because corporate structure is more transparent. So these were some of the important points on that I wanted to put before you. And the board composition is also done a lot for the development of the whole corporate governance ecosystem. I was reading one report that independent director institution has performed very well, and IICA has done a lot of work on the capacity building on the independent directors, and in 2024 around 1200 opportunities or spaces for the independent directors are coming to the field. So that's an important opportunity. IICA is doing a lot of work. All these corporate governance structures are contributing a lot for the development of the goal with the Prime Minister puts before us at India as a developed country in 2047. From the developing country status to the developed country status, and he has promised when he says that Modi guarantees that we are the 5th largest economy in the world, and in this coming 3-4 years we will become the 3rd largest economy in the world. So that is very important. If India has to become attain global leadership, it has to be an economic power first. So this is also very clear in the objective and the working of the government. As far as corporate governance is concerned, I would like to put 2-3 bullet points here because of my working practically with the public sector undertakings as in the board of directors. Participation of independent director over the year has been increased. There have been a lot of capacity building training. Their support from the ministries has been continuously and increasing. The importance through SEBI and other regulators also. This independent directors' importance in the board decisions, etc., is increasing. Women director participation is also an important part in the gender equality and development of the board. Composition, the government has tried over the last several years that not only finance and other professionals come into the board of public sector undertaking, but others, medical professionals, environmentalists, social activists. So the composition of the board becomes an all encompassing and inclusive composition is there. So that is an important point that I wanted to underline. For the corporate governance, the most important thing that I see over the years is agenda setting is very important. For the participant here, it is very important that what agenda is set in the board meeting, that participation at the board level is very important of the directors. What agenda is come, they should not get into the bogged down by the information overload. Many times I have seen that the other functional directors or other secretarial department, they overload the directors with small informations. But that important role that the director can play is he has to focus on what agenda should come to board, what information he does for gets in the discussion, and proper minutes are taken into account. Another important point that I felt is there are a lot of discussion in the board and a lot of papers come, but we should focus on what resolution we are passing. At point of times, we don't see the final resolution that is right in the board. What resolution you are passing is very important. Sometimes we think so many points are being discussed, but ultimately the important point is what the language of the resolution, what is the content of the resolution, that is very important. So when final decision is taken, at least we should go for the clear-cut resolution that we are passing. Another point that I would like to underline is every year in our board, we are insisting that we should have strategic meeting, at least 2 strategic meeting in the year. That's where the management and the functional director come out with a 6 months plan, what they want to do, what they want to achieve, what goals they want to achieve, how they want to achieve those goals, where policies are threadbarely discussed. So strategic meeting is an important part for efficient governance, corporate governance. And India is very good at the protection of minority interests. So corporate governance is at a good level in the country. On the audit committee, one point that I would like to underline is that we should have a separate meeting with the statutory auditors and internal auditors without the participation of the management in that meeting. We should have, this is very important. This gives confidence to the internal auditor team and the statutory auditors what they want to convey at point of time because of certain issues about the conflict of interest may arise. Therefore, a separate meeting is very important. So these were some of the important points that I wanted to underline is agenda setting, minutes, avoid information overload, the language and the content of the resolution is very important. Then the separate interaction of the statutory auditor and internal auditor is very important. If this corporate governance structure, which is being built by RBI, which is being built by SEBI and exchanges and the ministry and other institutions. So India is poised for a great leap on the economic side. There is a great hope for all of us that Indian economy will create a big mark at the global platform, and we will not only catalyze or propel the growth for India, but post-COVID, Indian economy is poised for catalyzing the growth of the world. 3 major economies in the world which were driving global economy have, after post-COVID, are facing certain challenges, whether it is US with high inflation, European economy with high recession, and Chinese economy, it has not overcome the shock of COVID. India is an outlier It has become the voice of the global South. African countries have aligned with India, and the leadership is very well clear on the creating an ecosystem of ease of doing business, transparency, corruption-free ecosystem where corporate structure has a big role to play for the creation of wealth. So I think these were some of the points that I wanted to put as an opening remarks. And we can, if any further discussion, definitely I would like to participate. Thank you, IICA, for giving me this opportunity, Dr. Neeraj Gupta ji and Praveen ji. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your insights and reinforcing confidence and also enthusiasm for contributing to collectively achieve this purpose. I'm sure India will shine and we have a very bright future ahead. Now, I would like to welcome Madam Karuna Gopal Vartakavi. If I briefly introduce you, ma'am, Madam Karuna sits on the board of Engineers India Limited and also national in charge of BJP on women policies and research. Madam had been contributory in terms of the smart city mission of the government of India and is also president of the Foundation for Futuristic Cities. To her credit, she has qualification from John F. Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University, US. She is a member of Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, UK, a distinguished fellow of India Foundation, and also a Rotary GSE scholar of IVLP, that is US Department of State institution. So I would like to invite you, ma'am, for your discourse for another 10 to 12 minutes. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Dr. Neeraj Gupta, for this introduction. Good afternoon to all of you. I heard several good speakers before me who delved deeper into the corporate governance aspects. So I request you to listen to what I have to say in terms of corporate governance, as I would like to juxtapose it with how our Prime Minister's aspirations go for this nation. So what I will be speaking about today is perhaps a little eagle view of things, because what we are talking today is about Viksit Bharat, so developed India by 2047. And as people sitting on the boards of companies, how we have to align with the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister. So I would like to just speak about 4 points, and I would like to juxtapose, as I said, what Prime Minister has done and what we have to perhaps do from the company side. Let me start with the most important thing, that is the vision. Honorable Prime Minister's vision to take India to the next level and make it a developed nation by 2047, my friends, is rooted in reality. He speaks from, it is also based on demonstrated capability of the Honorable Prime Minister. Now, just to elaborate a little, when the Honorable Prime Minister took the stewardship of the country, our country was in 11th position in GDP terms. Our external debt was very high, rupee was very fragile, inflation was high. And if you recall, in the year 2013, I'm sure some of you who've been following the economy at that time, people were cautioned and perhaps advised not to buy and invest in gold. And that is the exact time when there was an external pressure to remove India from the BRIC bloc, Brazil, Russia, India, China, to remove India and to replace India with Indonesia, because Indonesia was growing fast and India was not. And the manufacturing was at its lowest point. That's when the Prime Minister took over. And in just 10 years, see what he has done to the economy. He's today brought it to the 5th position. And today, if we are looking at the news, we know that Japan and Germany are not doing well. So obviously, in another very little time, we will go to the 3rd position, and that's it. So International Monetary Fund also categorically said that India will be a 5 trillion economy by 2027. So India, interestingly, what we have to know is that India not only remained in the BRIC bloc thanks to our Honorable Prime Minister's efforts, but recently some of the economists also compared it and said that we could perhaps be a part of the TIPS bloc. Now, what is TIPS bloc? TIPS is nothing but Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, and Singapore that are growing extremely fast. They are small economies, but they are growing very fast. So India, despite its size, has been compared to smaller countries, but agile countries. So this is what Prime Minister has done. And look at what is happening to the manufacturing. Manufacturing, as you know, we missed the third industrial revolution. In the 80s, UPA has taken terrible decisions, and then we lost the third industrial revolution, which means the gadgets, computers, hardware, every little thing was being imported from other countries. And India became paradoxically a marketplace for those. Now, look at what we are doing. We are manufacturing aircrafts, aircraft carriers. I don't even have to give the list. Yeah, the contribution to the GDP has grown phenomenally high. And just to give perhaps an interesting example is when at the World Economic Forum, when our IT Minister Ashwin Vaishnaji was there, one of the journalists asked him, perhaps in a disparaging way, how far has your manufacturing come? So he hasn't answered, but what he did was he took out his iPhone 15, showed it to him, and said, this is manufactured in India. Today, if you look at the numbers, my friends, I think Apple Corporation was investing something like $7 billion some 10 years ago. Today, it is investing $49 billion into India. That is proof enough for us to know what a brilliant vision can do to the country. Now, coming to our companies, we sit on the boards of companies, we represent the corporate world. So the questions I have is, do we in our companies have such grandiose and Virat vision like that of the Prime Minister? We need to ask ourselves, do we have that kind of a vision? Now, the vision that we have, has it been crafted and drafted collectively? Have we engaged with everyone? Have we interacted with everyone? The reason I'm asking this question, and the reason perhaps all of us have to ask this question is, when Prime Minister came out with his vision 2047, he had nothing less than 2,700 meetings with many, many ministries, 540 recommendations. And that is what is called consensus and a consensual process. So in our corporates, do we actually look at our vision that way? Do we craft them involving people? Let's assume we have that, but do we just keep them as wall pieces? Have we made any effort to ensure that that vision is institutionalized? Are our visions just embellishments on our brochures? Does every employee know what we stand for? I think the corporate sector should understand this perfectly to align itself to the vision, the Virat vision of the Honorable Prime Minister. So this is my first point. The second one, my friends, is about diversity. So you know that Honorable Prime Minister always talks about diversity. All his speeches talk about at least one aspect of women development. He talks about the disabled, the special, and he also talks about the transgenders. But we don't have time to talk about it now. But I would like to quickly tell you what he has done for women, and look at what he has done for women, and let's understand what we have to do for women in our own companies. For the first time in the history of independent India, the sex ratio has changed phenomenally. We were something like 931 girls versus 1,000 boys, but now we are 1,021 girls versus 1,000 boys. It's a phenomenal flip, I would say. Today, we see enrollments in schools. 30% of the girls are just simply getting into schools. And STEM graduates, girls, today have become exceptionally skilled in STEM studies like science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Today, women in India, 43% of the STEM graduates are women. We are ahead of America, we are ahead of UK, Germany, and France. And Prime Minister has made rural women millionaires, Lakpati Didi, he calls them. And recently, when I was in a very poor village in Bihar, I saw that some of the women farmers being trained in drone technology. They are literally trained in drone technology. They could spray pesticides, fertilizers, etc. And look at what's happening in the startup ecosystem. 45% of the startups today have at least one woman director sitting there. And yesterday, as of yesterday, I was reading a report that said that 15% of the unicorns in India are led by women, which translates to something like maybe 3 lakh crores, because they're unicorns with a valuation of 7,000 crores. So this is what Prime Minister has done. Now, my question, perhaps to all of us, which we should be asking is, what is our company's vision for women? What, are we just filling vacancies? Have we gone beyond the brief to push women into the corner offices? Have we done anything different to push women, to pull women from the periphery into the mainstream? What have we done to get women into the leadership positions? These are the things that we should ask, not just looking at filling up vacancies and just be satisfied with just having 10% women on board with us. I think if we have to emulate and really take India to the next level, we have to do what Prime Minister has done. And the third point, my friends, is about environment. Prime Minister articulated the net zero vision. And for some of us, we think that it is a recent vision, but not really so. I remember I was a part of the COP21, United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change, when our Honorable Prime Minister, 9 years ago, in 2015 in France, he announced the International Solar Alliance. Imagine the vision of that senior leader we have sitting at the helm of affairs. He, at that point in time, negotiated, got 65 countries on board, and they signed up saying that we will enter into a solar alliance. And today we are talking about EV policy, we are talking about biofuels, we are talking about rooftop solar, and women getting trained in that. That is the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister. Now, coming to what we have to do in our organizations, what is our vision for the environment? How many of us really know what is ESG? How many of us believe that just ticking off the ESG checklist will qualify us and make us, comply with the ESG requirements? The people, the triple bottom line that we talk about, the people, planet, profit, triple bottom line, is just a slogan for us? Or are we actually implementing it? Unless we do all these things, we cannot match the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister. For instance, sometimes I always wonder, if there is no regulator and if there is no SEBI, will we actually be doing all these things? So how is our DNA? And the last point, my friends, is on governance. Prime Minister, when he actually sat on the responsible chair of the leader of the country, he said that he believes in maximum governance and minimum government. And that perhaps is the one that is responsible for pushing our country from a fragile 5 to a top 5. In this context, I am reminded of something very interesting that happened to China. I think about a decade ago, when China was really slipping in terms of its gross domestic product and the economy was turbulent, China went to IMF seeking funds. But I think Christine Lagarde was sitting at the helm of affairs at IMF, and she cautioned China. She said, we will give you what you want, but don't invest that money in hard infrastructure. Don't build roads, don't build ports, don't build marquee infrastructure, glass and steel. Put the money in soft infrastructure. What is soft infrastructure? Put the money in governance, put the money in reforms, bring in transparency, bring in accountability. This is exactly what our Prime Minister has done. He has invested not only in hard infrastructure, he has invested in the soft infrastructure like governance, transparency, accountability, and marquee transformative reforms. Now, coming to our companies, how robust are our corporate governance plans? How many times do we do our toll gate reviews? Without, again, the compliance and regulatory compliances that we stick to, statutory committees, can we still have a good governance plan? If there is no thrust and pressure from SEBI and other regulators, can we actually stick to those good governance principles? I think these are the questions that we should ask. Now, let me conclude by quickly something that has always bothered me, which I'd like to share with a good platform like this. Whenever we sit on the board of a company and whenever we see the company from, again, the eagle eye, we always look at threats. We look at the external environment and we say the company needs, the risk assessment is like, is the competitor profile, then the volatility of the currency, we look at the geopolitics. But little do we know about the internal threats. Lack of a vision is an internal threat, my friends. Lack of cohesive teams is an internal threat. Being surrounded by yes men is an internal threat. Not allowing people to wear black hats and throwing criticism periodically at you is an internal threat. Laziness is an internal threat. And these are the things that we are not paying attention to. Now tell me, where can we get good governance from? I mean, there are books and books and books, there are speeches and speeches. But if we don't speculate, if we don't get back to the basics, we are not going to get our governance in order. So these are the 4 important things that I wanted to share with you. Align our vision, corporate vision, with the vision of Prime Minister in terms of his vision, his diversity, his women orientation, his governance aspects, and the environmental focus. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and always happy to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for your insights and guidance on this. What I could learn is, and a very louder message, very clear. What matters is investing in governance. That is the softer and underlying aspect. Instead, the soul of the entire activity. The hardwares, systems, policies will follow. So that's a very interesting message we have received towards, as a great contribution to this vision. Now, I would like to welcome Madam Vini Thapar, and would be happy to introduce in a very brief manner. Madam is a chartered accountant and has about 3 decades of experience to her credit in the field of statutory and internal audit of companies, banks, PSUs, and other organizations. A consultant on not just the matters of taxation, but also on FEMA, RBI, and also to the boards. Madam is serving in Bank of India as second term board member and also chairing the audit committee. Madam is sitting on the board of Yokohama India Limited, a public listed company, and again the chairperson of the audit committee. In addition, there are 4 more companies she sits on the boards, which are listed entities. Madam is an avid speaker and writer, and the best part, we have received her guidance for 2 terms at IICA as a board member, which has indeed helped us structuring the institutions as well as the governance mechanism. So I welcome you, ma'am. Over to you, please.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Neeraj, for such a lavish introduction, which was supposed to be brief. The DGCO IICA, Praveenji, Additional Secretary MCA Pandeyji, my fellow co-panelists Gopalji and Karunaji, it's been such a pleasure to hear you. The benefit or the disadvantage of coming in last is that a lot of points come across in the forum as it is, and there is not a lot of work left for the last speaker to speak. However, We've had a very interesting session, so far with detailed views coming in and the eagle-eyed views coming in from Karunaji. And I think I've been given the inherent responsibility to see whether these two visions and these two segments can be aligned towards an implementation process. So, I was going to speak on a few other things, but I'm going to reserve that for the end if there's enough time. I'm going to pick up a few things from what has already been spoken on this forum. Very, very correctly, very honestly, the vision of the Prime Minister is not just for the country alone, it is for every aspect of growth of this country, which has already been very lucidly explained by Karunaji in very crisp and very wonderful manner. These visions are somehow or the other going to ultimately translate into some kind of activity, which she has pointed out, the manufacturing segment in various areas of infrastructure. We have progressed immensely. Manufacturing has gone multi exponential in our growth. While at the same time, we've had a lot of discussion around PSUs and PSBs. I sit on a PSB, but my co-panelists sit on PSUs. Their corporate structures, their way of handling things, the granular analysis of what can happen or not happen in board meetings or audit committee meetings. We've touched on ESG, we've touched on CSR, we've touched on ease of doing business, we've touched on diversity in boards. I would like to give a perspective to this whole thing before I go on to any other discussion points. The first thing being, as I have sat simultaneously on public sector boards, irrespective that it's a bank or any other organization, and while I sit on a non-public sector, which may be listed or non-listed companies, there is a very inherent difference in the way the functioning of these organizations happen. Although things are changing, corporate governance is no longer just a word or just a term that has been coined, which used to only encompass compliance at some point of time. Now the word corporate governance actually is evolving to a level where organizations are looking at it in a much larger perspective. But having said that, I still feel that the organizations that are not being run in the government segment are still lacking the corporate governance as a culture. For them, corporate governance still encompasses only compliance. A lot of issues around tick the box have been spoken. That's exactly what is happening. So as far as aligning the vision of the country and then bringing it down and sort of breaking it up into various sectors, putting the onus and the responsibility of corporate governance and growth and all the other aspects we've spoken in the forum so far, ultimately in a granular manner on each and every organization based on whichever place they are functioning out of, whichever geographical area they are functioning out of, or whichever business segment they are functioning in. It is really, really important that corporate governance should not remain just a coined word. Book knowledge, as Karunaji already pointed out, is available in thousands of ways. But what is not happening is that even the board members are not getting I won't use the word knowledge, they are not getting an upgrade. When you walk into a particular place, you know so much, so you are chosen. But where is your own? If you are not updating yourself with whatever is happening in the latest scenario, how to change things and emulating all that, the environment in your area to be aligned with what you want to do, there has to be a study on that. You just cannot walk into a board and just decide that this is what you know and this is what you have to make them do. You have to first understand the business. So going from vision coming further down and getting into the long and short-term goals, going down from there and breaking it up into strategy meetings, which Gopalji had spoken about, and then further bringing down a glide path for actual achievement, combining that with a roadmap where the HR, your entire stakeholders, people who are working for you are happy. They want to do what it is that the government, the company first, and then the government wants as an alignment for growth purposes. This is, I think, where corporate governance needs to enlarge its scope. This is where I think the board needs to function in a much, much more different manner than simply meeting 4 times a year or 6 times a year, as happens in the non-government segment companies. I mean, the listed companies. I'm not talking about each and everybody. There are those outliers who are doing beautifully. There are those set of companies who have their ethics and their, their vision, their mission, and all those statements defined in a way that each and every member is involved, but those are very few in the country. We have to bring this like a culture everywhere, which means that the boards have to be boards and top management, not just the boards and top management have to be very well aligned with each other. The asking of the right questions, the early warning signals, how our stakeholders as our internal workers are functioning with us. What about the professionals that are being engaged by us? Lots and lots of granular analysis needs to be put together and brought back onto the board. One of the major areas that I wanted to actually talk about in this segment of corporate governance, in addition to everything I've said so far, like a summing up situation, is about the challenges that a board or any organization faces because of IT, digitalization, artificial intelligence. These are an absolute necessity in today's date now. But to what extent and how and at what pace do we need them to take over our things? What is to be replaced? What is not to be instantly replaced? What are the mitigants we are going to put into place? And this becomes a very important issue where banks are concerned, although every organization now cannot function without an IT, digitization, tech savvy segment and a tech savvy board, a tech savvy set of people working for it. But there are areas where despite technology, despite its beautiful use of easing things, easing businesses, easing processes, there are huge challenges to integrity, transparency, accountability in the financial discipline segment, especially. So how do we protect that? What is it that we understand about it? How in the diversity of the board that we are talking about, we are not only talking about gender diversity, but we are also talking about having the right composition in the board, that there are people who understand these things and don't simply sign off things based on certificates that come into a board saying that, okay, this has been taken care of, so you are not responsible. The work of the board or even the top management does not end there. Just because I have done the due diligence of having a certificate in place which absolves me of any kind of a sort of a responsibility, it is not a segment of good governance. I haven't done my bit. How do we protect that? We were speaking about the Sabka Saath to up to Sabka Prayas. So in the Sabka Prayas, what have we connected to the last person in the organization in some manner or the other? Do we know their contributions? Are we appreciating those contributions? This is another thought process that I would like to put across. The role of the board members, according to me, becomes very, very important. Tune from the top, tone from the top, lots of language that we talk and hear and write in books and read in books. But are we actually doing that? Are we actually geared up for whatever meeting we are attending? Have we actually aligned every agenda that we are receiving and categorized it into whether it's a compliance issue, whether it's a business issue, whether it's a strategy issue, and whether we are now talking about vision? Are we spending a little extra time other than our board meetings and interacting with our top management? Are we understanding where we are going? Is there a firefighting that is happening? Are we kind of uh, aware of that? Or will we, as independent directors or directors, also read it about in the newspaper? Is there a system within your company where whatever new, good or bad is happening is updated to you on a continuous basis? Is your voice heard? Would you, if you put in a request, if you put in an idea, is somebody working on that idea to let you know whether it's workable, not workable, and what can be done about it? Women directors, of course, lots and lots of discussion is happening, and on the eve of like the Women's Day, I think the whole world starts revolving around the topic of women. Very important for us to be there, but are enough of us there? Are enough of us there at the higher levels? I'm happy to know, and I'm happy to let you know that just today morning we were having this discussion that almost 29% of our workforce in our bank is women. A very commendable situation, but how many of us have actually reached points? How many of us are actually reaching heights? There are a lot of people at a certain level, but what are we doing? What are we doing from our organization to make people want, to make women want to come up and take responsible positions? Because they have other responsibilities also and can't be wished away. So are we making the atmosphere very comfortable for them, or at least comfortable enough for them that they would want to explore their other side and their professionalism and contribute back to the society? They have a huge potential to do that. Are they doing it? So with a lot of more questions, I think I'm going to thank everybody, and I'm going to probably open the forum for questions, because I think there is a paucity of time also, and people would probably want to ask. I don't want to be repeating anything that's already been said. I would just like to thank IICA for considering me as part of this very esteemed panel, so that I could come and I could share my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for very insightful discourse. Many good points have evolved, right from culture to the kind of dynamics we need to ensure if we have to march ahead in a speed by which the governance frameworks, the regulatory frameworks are evolving. What I also personally believe, the efforts need to be both sided, as the experts have indicated. On the one hand, the regulation is evolving day in, day out. We are referring to the best developed jurisdictions and adopting the best practices. This is first ever in the regulatory setup that things are being infused in the existing framework of the country as fast as possible. What is required is sincere efforts on the part of companies also to adapt and align with all such frameworks, which will enhance their speed and propensity towards better governance, which will help us attaining a stage where India can be proud of a country, developed nation with very developed high-tech organizations, which not just care for the growth or profitability, but care for the true purpose behind their constitution and also multiple levels of stakeholders. Now, as you have rightly said, we are running out of time. So I would like to invite the participants to raise their hand so that we can have their questions straight. And we have all the three experts available. Our DG is also available. I believe Manoj Pandey sir is also available. So any one of you can take up the question. Mr. Debajit Ghosh, can you unmute yourself, sir? Mr. Debajit Ghosh.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much to all the esteemed panelists. It's very insightful discussion. Now, the point I want to raise is, personally, I've had the privilege of working 6 years in an Indian company and then 17 years in an international oil and gas company. So I'm from the oil and gas sector. and I have done SEC compliant reporting for an international oil and gas company before I left my job last year. Now, so I have seen a little bit of the culture of the Indian companies as well as internationally in very matured companies. Now, one thing that struck me is, since the time I joined the workforce, I have seen two things ever evolving: regulations and technology, and we do need to adapt to them so that we can actually evolve and take care of a lot of things in terms of sustainability, inclusiveness, value creation. All can be incorporated to regulation. But one thing that stands out is integrity. Now, what I've seen is our hierarchical structure impedes us from receiving 360-degree feedback, and the disincentive for sharing bad news further hinders our growth, which is not the case when I worked for international companies. Added to that, while we take pride in our jugaad mentality, but lack of authenticity contribute to exploiting.
Can we have the sharp question, please?
Yes.
Because
so
we have
this,
to accommodate.
I just wanted to say, because so let me ask the question. With this, the softer side of character, which is hierarchical structure and mentality for jugaad, leads to a lot of exploiting the borderlines of legalities, and that is impeding our growth. What can we do about it?
Can I take that question?
Yeah, please.
Okay, Devajit, thank you for coming and giving this. I mean, asking this question in a very lucid manner, in a very open manner. Let me tell you something that integrity is something that is driven from your personal level. The government, the regulators, all the institutions around you can only help to streamline and to keep on track based on certain types of requirements, of submissions, of transparency, of working environment, and various other regulations and parameters. They can put into place a structure where people are open to review. They are open to every kind of examination. And that, I think, in India, in the last 10 years, where we were to where we are, I think the difference is very obvious. With the invent of faceless sort of assessments happening in the income tax segment and various other segments, with the invent of digitization, with the invent of everything being captured in a manner where there is a digital trail and a path of every single activity that we do, I think that mitigation to a great extent has already happened. And as a culture, what was not perfectly aligned earlier is now going towards alignment. I would say the change is like a sea change. Lots and lots and lots of things are now different, transparent, accountable. However, the word integrity that you used is a very personal term. Anybody sitting at any level, they can decide that they want to compromise their integrity. And I don't think that is country specific. The only thing that the other countries do better than our country, or we are now doing almost as good as many other countries, is that we have streamlined and made our governance and our regulations very, very robust. They are practical, they are implementable, and at the same time, as Manoj sir had pointed out, we are doing ease of business. We're taking care of ease of business on one side and accountability and transparency on the other side. So I think the change is already there. I'm surprised that you could not have noticed it. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Can we have Mr. Subramanian Vaidya? And just I'll be needing support of you all with a humble request. Please don't introduce in a very detailed manner. It would be really appreciative of you if we can have the question straight, very sharp.
Yeah, I would rather put a question straight, sir.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
So much being spoken.
A bit louder, sir.
So much being spoken on the corporate governance and Viksit Bharat by Praveen Kumar as well as many other speakers here. I would like to ask you that if you want to reinforce these corporate governance through tooling, artificial intelligence parameter platforms are available, but I would rather have an MCA guidance of which platform we use so that there is a certain amount of convergence in terms of roadmap when it comes to using certain chat GPTs. For example, we have our own chat GPT, Indian one, Hanuman. Is it okay to use that alone, or you go to some other? So certain amount of governance and to reinforce these people, because many directors are, a lot of innovations to come out, but when they are trained on these factors, perhaps we will be able to do a fast forward when it comes to Viksit Bharat. I am just asking you this question. Possibly, is it possible?
ठीक है, मैं बोल दूं इस पे थोड़ा सा फिर.
Sure, sir. Please come in as you are comfortable. Yeah.
Subramaniam ji, I think Prime Minister has focused a lot on knowledge economy, artificial intelligence, creating digital public infrastructure, using technology in all governance issues. So transparency, establishing audit trail, all these are important part, and corporate governance, etc. is only, this is what the whole bringing transparency and bringing awareness to the people is all about. I think sure everybody agrees that with new advent of technologies, new challenges have come. Cyber securities and other things are also affecting the ecosystem of the companies. So more and more investment into technology is being appreciated at the corporate level. So government is moving in this direction with new privacy bill, data sharing, other laws, or also aligning the whole ecosystem to new challenges.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question is from Mr. Madhur Chaudhary. Mr. Madhur, your question, please.
Good evening, sir. I'm Madhur Chaudhary, Joint Director Tariff Finance at Madhya Pradesh Electricity Regulatory Commission, Bhopal. So I have a question from the regulatory side, and the question is very simple. Like the panelist said that the right composition of boards is very essential. So my question is right composition of the regulatory authorities at the level of chairman, member, director, and all others. That is also very important. So like in our case, the Electricity Act says that after being a member, you cannot work in the licensee for 2 years. Why the Act does not say that you should not be working at a licensee 2 years prior to coming to the commission also? Thank you, sir. So only a question on conflict of interest and you can say delinking the regulator from the licensee.
इतना ज्यादा restrictions तो नहीं कर सकते, ठीक है. पोस्ट पहले भी तो how will you get the capacity? If he has experience in the field, then only he will become a better regulator. That is also important. If you say कि for 2 years he has not worked in some field and then he becomes a regulator, so he will not be updated. So it's both issues, but conflict of interest is an issue where his decisions are not marred by his post-retirement interest. So that is what the regulator placement is being checked.
Okay, thank you. Can we have Mr. Divakar Shetty? Divakar, your question, please. Divakar, can you hear me?
Divakar, can you please share your audio?
I think he is not available. Let's take Navid. Abhijit, can we have Mr. Navid now?
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can hear you. Please shoot
Yeah,
your
Divakar
question.
Shetty
Short
from
and crisp, please.
Yes, sir. I am Divakar Shetty from State Trading Corporation of India Limited. My question, our Gopalji told a separate meeting, ask for the separate meeting with the internal auditors and statutory auditors with the audit committee. Can we ask for that every quarter or every once in a year? Gopalji.
Okay, Diwakar ji,
Yeah.
in the board you have immense powers. You
Yeah.
can set the agenda,
Yeah.
you can call expert, you can ask any information, you can ask the management to be out for a separate meeting with the auditors, and as many times as you
Yeah,
want.
without officials
I
of the
always
government.
have a separate meeting with the auditors and internal auditors whenever that agenda is there or whenever result is there. You can have, because that will only build their confidence of work, and you will also understand beyond the information that is flowing through you through only the functional
You
directors
can
and the manager.
separate meeting without the officials
Yeah,
of the company.
it's
Yes,
your
no?
right.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
can.
you
Another
can.
question, Madam
Can I,
Thapar.
one sec, yeah, can
Yeah.
I just add one
Yes,
more
please.
line on that? Frequency is of course not a problem at all. You can have as many meetings as you like with them as you feel are necessary. What is important is that especially before results are out, one is a good practice to have a meeting with them independently. The entire audit committee can have it. Now I think SEBI and especially in banks, RBI, they're almost making it compulsory that this meeting should happen with the audit committee without the management sitting on it. They're making it a part of the corporate governance regulations only. But even if they were not doing that or they have done it now, most of us who've been sitting on banking boards or even on companies, we have made it a point that at least the first meeting of the year, somewhere in April, is had with the statutory and internal auditors to first discuss scope with them. We don't want arbitrary things to be taken up where important things get left out. So they bring a scope to us, we enhance or we limit or we do whatever needs to be done with that as an audit committee. The second thing is that you should, if you are an audit committee chair, your responsibility and the other audit committee members' responsibility is almost the same. But as an audit committee chair, especially if you are also financially qualified in the sense you're a CA or a CS or cost accountant or an MBA in finance, etc., you need to understand those issues that are being brought out into the committee in a much more detailed manner. So it is a good practice to meet these auditors in a pre-ACB, which you could meet either the entire ACB can meet them or at least the audit chair should meet them. A pre-ACB is what we term it as. You can easily take, and I personally take it every quarter wherever I am, in whichever board I am. I know it's an extra effort. I know it's an extra time. I know you don't get paid for it, but you're not there only for the sitting fees. You are there for job satisfaction. You're there to make a change. That is why you've been given these positions or you've taken up these positions depending on why and how you've been put in a board. So I think it's a very good practice to engage with all the not only statutory and internal auditors, they are mandatory, but even other professionals who are in an independent capacity and whose reports you are relying on. It's a good practice to meet them and understand what they have brought about in that report.
Yes, thank you.
एक
Another
और
question, madam.
point
Madam,
मैं
another
ऐड
question
करना
you
चाहता
told.
हूँ.
Yes, small question.
One more point that I want to add कि independent directors, at least 2 meetings they should have separately. Only for the independent directors, and उसके minutes नहीं होते हैं. You don't have to give minutes of those meetings where you can discuss about your about what is the opinion of independent directors on, because different independent directors sitting on different subcommittees. So that is also very
two meetings
important.
you are saying. We are attending one meeting here. You are saying two meetings.
Two is a requirement now.
Yes. Okay. Another question, madam. Thapar,
Yes.
madam. Updation of company matters not only in board.
Can we have other questions, because there are other people waiting? You already have received the answer for one question.
You can listen.
Yeah, you can put that in the chat box. We'll take up if we'll have sufficient time. Now, Mr. Navid, can we have your question, please?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes.
Sir, my name is Naveed Rasool. I am from Srinagar, Jammu and Kashmir. Going not deep into my introduction, I am one of the participants of the joint program conducted by IICA and IM Jammu. So now I am new into this field of sustainability and corporate governance. In fact, before 2 or 3 days, I qualified the proficiency test for independent directors. Throughout the last year, I came to know it seems like we are just waiting for scams to happen, as Mr. Praveen sir rightly pointed out. So can we not have any amendment in the Companies Act itself so that we cannot face the problems like we are seeing the Paytm scam happen and Enron and like all those things. It seems like we are just waiting for scams to happen, not making any provisions. So please, I want to get the answer of this question. Thank you.
मैं बोल दूं फिर फेनी जी आप भी बोल दीजिएगा
नहीं आप बोल दीजिए, मैं तो ऑलरेडी एथिक्स पे बोल चुकी हूँ, आप बोलिए.
देखिए Naveed ji, it is very important that you have a proper whistleblower mechanism in the company. And at point of time, my experience is that at what the companies many times try, if there is any whistleblower complaint, it should go to the managing director. I have insisted, and I think we should insist, it should come to the audit committee or whichever committee, but that's very important. Proper whistleblower policy mechanism, and whatever has come as a whistleblower complaint, it should be put before the independent directors committee or audit committee. That is also very important.
Also,
that will only prevent frauds.
Otherwise, one second. One very important thing is that not everybody who's doing business is doing it wrongly or unethically. So just because there are a few people who are, or a few organizations who are doing wrong things, you can't stop the progress of every other business and every other businessman in the country. So ease of doing business has to be balanced out with all the regulations. Otherwise, people and businesses would only be working on regulations and would have no time to do the actual work. Regulations can only come about when there is some work. First, there has to be a business, then it has to be regulated. If the regulations are not in consonance with the work that is happening, if they are very little or they are too many, both throttle the business. So you have to be a little careful as to balancing. So the laws and the rules and the regulations can have a limitation of what they are supposed to do. Of course, we are already covering everything that needs to be done. You cannot wish away the fact that people will be unethical if they desire to be unethical. However, as already pointed out by Gopalji, there are whistleblower mechanisms. We have early warning signals. We have independent directors sitting in boards. We have regulators. We have external auditors. We have internal auditors. There are a host of provisions. If after that, also a private organization or an organization which is owned majorly in a private segment wants to go ahead and do something wrong, you can only stop it at some point. Nobody would know the intention of what somebody wants to do. You can only find out what somebody has done, unless there are early warning signals which people have ignored, which are playing a very important role in today's date. And most of these early warning signals now are not just quantitative; they are also qualitative. There are interactions informally and formally with people where early warning signals are being recognized in a qualitative manner also. So there is already a lot being done. It's a wish that everything will be perfect in a particular world. You can only aim to get there.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Can we have question? I think I can accommodate maximum 3 questions now. So can we have Anand Sardeshmukh?
We are already at 6, huh?
Good evening.
Touching 6, yeah. Anand,
Thanks
yeah,
a lot
please.
for the nice views expressed by all the panelists. My question is to Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, as he is there on the SME committee. Before that, I'm a certified empaneled and active independent director and director with a 40 plus years corporate experience. See, SME segment is today a very important and growing segment of the Indian economy. But I would say that the governance in this segment is inadequate. We see the transparency and compliance, though the need of the hour, I think circumstances keep it at its minimum. And the boards are definitely not, they are weaker, they are not strengthened. What efforts can be made by the government to encourage these SMEs to have more powerful board? Can we think of something where the government incentivize the SMEs to have a good independent director on their board and ensure that these SMEs fall in good compliance and governance category? Thank you.
Anandji, as Beniji has already mentioned, there is always a debate between ease of doing business and compliance cost in every field, whether it is finance, capital market, or any field. You will see this is an important conflict that has to be resolved and balanced. Not only it cannot be resolved, but balanced. So the cost of doing business is an important element. The government, through various digitization mechanisms, virtual assessment, GST, and other sharing of other registration of MSME, everything, the digitization process, so that formalization takes place at MSME. But over regulation is not what our focus is, because they are at a growing stage. They need, the cost is also very important for their growth and competitiveness. So where you talk about investor protection or other thing, where larger public interest is involved, there we need much more regulation, because small investor, minority investor, their participation is there. And as far as MSME and other thing, their formalization and government regulation, etc., is important. So there is some kind of cost benefit that is also, it has to be incorporated. But ultimately, establishing audit trail, using data, sharing of the data between agencies, income tax, GST, etc., and other bank, other thing, their transaction, etc., will create more transparent ecosystem. And slowly government is working that they should get into formalization. More and more MSME should get into formalization, and there should be no incentive of being small. At times there are certain demands that which create an ecosystem where there is an incentive for being small. So that also has to be looked into. This is balancing that is being done.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Can play a great role in that.
Right. Can we have Mr. Murli Krishna? Murli, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Very good evening, sir. This is Murli Krishna, sir. Sir, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, you are audible, please.
Sir, I have two questions. I have two small questions. Presently, I am a chartered accountant. I am working for the Bank of Baroda as a chief manager. I have a 20 years industry experience. I have
question,
a strong...
please, sir. Question only, because we are running out of the time.
One maybe a suggestion or a question. Even when today banks 250 crores and above sanctioned to the corporates, there is a specialized monitoring agency they are appointing. So where their accounts 250 crores and above, can the banks or government can consider for appointment of independent directors where the exposure is 250 crores and above? Is it possible? That is one small question. And second question, because all the opportunities are coming for the only experienced people only, not the young people, in case of the independent directors. So under the Viksit Bharat and 2047, the ambition is huge. But however, I'm sorry to say that because you're already working in those who are retired from the boards and the PSU boards or some other boards, they are only getting an opportunity. The young people like me, I'm not getting the opportunity. Then what is the way forward for
okay, we got the question. We got the question. Now, can we have the responses from any of the experts?
Okay, the first thing that I want to tell you is that the age of the average independent director has come down by 10 years. If you look at the entire database of the independent directors that are sitting on various boards, in the private segment as well as the public segment, the general age has come down by a minimum of 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. And I think Gopalji will throw some more light on it. The second thing is that while I'm not discriminating and saying that only older people have the knowledge, but you can't wish away the fact that with age and with the work that you have put behind you will come experience. And I'm sure that we do not want people sitting on our boards who still lack the experience to be able to look at things holistically and from a larger perspective, from a bird's eye view, and not just in a very, very granular manner, because the entire business segment, whether it's in the private segment or the public segment, has an entire hierarchy of people who are working. People who ultimately come into the board have to have a larger perspective. For example, we may be practicing CS, but when we sit on the board as an independent director, we use our acumen, we use our knowledge, but we do not unnecessarily step into the shoes of the person who's working. That is left to the person who's working. We have donned on a different hat at that point of time. So one is to answer your question, the age has come down. The second is while you are sitting and working in an organization as an employee, if you also work as an independent director on any board, there is in any case a conflict of interest to a large extent. So most of these things have to be also seen from that perspective. Does that answer your question?
That's right. Very valid.
मैं एक छोटा सा brief point और add कर देता हूँ.
Sure, sir.
Murli ji, the thing is that
advances in 250 crores and advances, why can't we appoint an independent director in all the accounts?
Yes, Murli ji, I would like to say on this issue that we are moving towards a free economy. If we want to become a economics power, the free market economy is the only way where corporates get better control on their investment decisions. If you want on everything, if you say the government should intervene on everything, I don't think that is the philosophy currently. We need an independence of the board.
Only
And
point is to prevent the frauds in advance. That is only the point.
Murli, please let him respond first, Murli ji.
There is no guarantee that it's a huge, this kind of regulation cannot come. It has to be an internal matter of the bank, how they handle these kind of things. Ultimately, government cannot intervene on these issues. And as Vaniji has said, that there is a separate responsibility about operational issues has to be with the functional directors. Independent directors are involved in the policy matters only. Though independent director definitely have a say what is operational and what is policy matter, that they can say, but as an independent director, they cannot get into the operational issue. So monitoring loan, etc. is an operational issue, but reporting of frauds, etc. should come to the independent board or the audit committee.
So Gopalji, I think you already said this and it's very clear. Even if you bring in 3 independent directors on a board, wishing away the fact that the company may not end up doing a fraud, that they're not connected with each other at all. And the idea is not to go and creating more and more people in an organization who are supposed to work like policemen or police women. The idea is to create a culture where people don't get into this kind of an activity and understand that frauds or any of such types of activities are only going to result in short-term gains, which are going to have long-term consequences. That is what has to be explained to everybody. That's the first point. The second point is that in any case, even if there's an independent director sitting on the board, and I can name a few companies where they've been sitting and there's still been frauds. And those independent directors have done their due diligence, but for some reason or the other, the fraud still happened. So it's not like it's linked to one another.
And independent director don't have access to every information operational issues. So you can't put responsibility without the day-to-day operational involvement of the independent director.
Yes, we are very clear. I think the government is very clear. We want minimum government and maximum governance. We just don't want to go on adding more and more government in whichever capacity you look at it.
That's a great phrase, I believe, and a very strong message: minimum government and maximum governance. And this had been the underlying message behind every initiative that Government of India has taken in last 10 years. It has come from the Honorable PM, and I believe this is the right juncture when I can conclude this webinar. I understand there are hundreds of participants who are quite enthusiastic having a question, but I'm really sorry. I apologize because of paucity of time. It's not possible to accommodate the question in this open forum. However, I would request to please mail. Of course, we are capturing from the chat the questions, and we'll try to have the opinion from the experts on those questions. But still, if you have not placed it in the chat, my email ID is neeraj.gupta@gov.in. You can mail us the question and we will help you connecting with the experts for their responses. So this is the time I would like to thank Ministry of Corporate Affairs for the guidance for organizing this, along with our DG Shri Praveen Kumar, all the distinguished experts, Shri Manoj Pandey, Gopal ji, Veni ji, and Karuna Gopal ji, for sparing 2 valuable hours out of their busy schedule and sharing the insights from their personal experience. One more thing which I have learned from what Veni ji has just said: India is maturing and will be much matured in 2047 as far as the independence is concerned. But when it comes to the question of the energies of our corporate sector, and especially the boards, we are getting much younger. So that's a very good indication. That is indication towards the aspect of inclusivity, which is something guiding us and motivating us day in, day out. And I see with my personal experience and interface that a number of companies are selecting young professionals, those who have really the acumen of contributing, irrespective of the fact whether they have board experience or not. So that glass ceiling, which we used to have some 10 years back, is no longer there. More companies, because India is featured by founder-driven businesses, but even founder-established companies are becoming more professional, being headed by professional MDs and CEOs. So with this, I would like to thank all the experts, our DG, Ministry, Manoj Pandey sir, and all of you who have make it convenient to join with us in this discussion. I would like to mention there were about 75 who joined through YouTube live webcast. I would like to thank them as well, and all those who have contributed for the successful organization of this program. Have a great evening, and let us all commit to contribute to 2047, when we can evolve with better corporate governance, with better economy, better concerns and initiatives on social aspects, sustainability aspects, and so on and so forth. The list is huge. A lot of work needs to be done with the right vision guiding us all. Thank you very much.
With सबका प्रयास.
सबका साथ and सबका प्रयास चाहिए, तभी इस मंजिल तक हम पहुंच पाएंगे। और मुझे विश्वास है जो एनर्जी सबने प्रदर्शित की है उससे हम इसको अचीव करने में सफल होंगे। Thank you so much once again.
Ji and Praveen ji, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Neeraj.
All the panelists, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice.
Can we leave the chat now?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.